away with organized policing.
All right.
Democrats in Congress have introduced police reform legislation.
Americans who took to the streets have demanded change. With this legislation, Democrats are heeding their call.
Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer, the bill would create a national database of excessive force complaints and stop the practice of providing surplus military gear to police departments. It would also ban the use of chokeholds. Attorney General William Barr telling Fox's special report with Brett Baer.
I think we should ban chokeholds, lateral chokeholds, except when it's necessary to meet lethal, unless police officers confronted with potentially lethal force. But I think there's a general agreement among police agencies that we need clearer standards. We have to make sure those standards are trained to, and we have to make sure that there are systems in place that hold officers accountable.
But the Attorney General said cutting money to police departments would only increase crime. America is listening to Fox News.
As we emerge from the effects of the global pandemic, Security Title is rethinking how to best serve our customers. With our houses clean and closets reorganized, here's a reminder to take a look at the title to your house and other real estate. Is your trust in order? Is it time to update your wills? Do you have the best interest rate available on your home? As we get back to work, there's no better time to revisit your most valuable asset, your property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
As we stand up to coronavirus by standing back with social distancing, Bank Pacific reminds you that you can come to the bank without going to the bank. Use many of our other delivery platforms like online banking at bankpacific.com, accessing cash at our ATMs, shopping with our debit cards. For businesses, we have secure cash and check drop windows, and we are employing a new smarter mobile app with remote deposit capture in the next few weeks. We're all in this together, and together we will win. Bank Pacific. Where others put branches, we place roots. Member FDIC.
New York City Monday, beginning the process of getting back to business.
The beginning of phase one of the city's reopening. What that means is that wholesalers, construction, manufacturing, as well as curbside retail can get underway. The next phase is going to include the reopening of offices and regular outside dining, but that won't happen for at least 2 weeks. The mayor says count on early July. The third phase calls for restaurant dining rooms to reopen as well as hotels, and the fourth and final phase will permit schools, theaters, and other forms of entertainment to resume. Of course, all this depends on the city meeting a number of thresholds that show the virus is not spreading.
Fox's David Lee Miller. More of the first volunteers are starting to trickle back to their desks at federal agencies in the wake of the coronavirus lockdown. The Energy Department says the first voluntary returns of a small number of headquarters workers began on Monday. The State Department and Agriculture Department also have some workers returning to job places this month, but a surge in cases of the virus in Boston and Dallas, leading the Environmental Protection Agency to put on hold its timeline for getting workers back to regional offices. On a procedural issue, a federal court lawsuit over Michigan's restrictive stay-at-home orders has been dismissed.
U.S. District Judge Bernard Friedman rejecting a challenge to Governor Gretchen Whitmer's orders requiring people to stay at home and most businesses to close during the outbreak, but the ruling was not based on merit. Friedman saying the Constitution bars citizens from filing federal lawsuits against states. Therefore, the plaintiffs can't sue Whitmer in her role as governor. The judge also noting the case is moot because the Democratic governor has since rescinded her executive orders. Whitmer's coronavirus restrictions were among the toughest in the nation, drawing fire from protesters and from President Trump. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
This Father's Day, be one of 7 lucky winners of Circle K's Ultimate Father's Day Package. Get a case of tomahawk steak, a bottle of whiskey, a case of beer, and a Bacchus beer bag. That's a $300 value. Purchase $25 or more in fuel, or any 6-pack or more of Miller Lite, Coors Light, or Blue Moon to receive an entry form. Tune in to The Ray Gibson Show on The Point for more ways to win. Winners will be announced on June 17. Visit 76CircleKGuam.com or any Circle K location for more details.
Hafide, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years. Tall Tales is also brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The beginning of every program tells you that we are I am constitutionally oriented, take a certain amount of interest in the Bill of Rights, conservative, a little bit on the libertarian side, not too fond of supporting nonsense as far as politics are concerned. A little bit of sarcasm and facetious comments, which is marked by a... So when you hear the real Joe Cruz, he's marking sarcasm or facetious comment, which sometimes my international radio listening audience has taken literally. So sometimes I suppose I'm a little bit too subtle for my own good. Therefore, when the real Joe Cruz catches me in something that's actually facetious, he will... There you go. So that's how we do it here on Tall Tales. The first part of the agenda is called Zemi Ikotny. And the design of the program is to take the offerings on the two editorial pages of our daily newspapers, mark them up, look for mistakes, criticize the grammar and English usage, the theoretical basis for the editorial, and its factual basis. Having done that, evaluate the two and give the better of the two the coveted blue star with my blue pencil. I am not able to do that most of the time because the Daily News, instead of running a local editorial, runs all kinds of boilerplate from USA Today and Gannett News Service. About once every 60 days, they do their own editorial. So what it boils down to is I trash the Daily News, go to the Post. Oftentimes the Post wins, but the Blue Star is never awarded by default. There are times when, even though the Post does not have competition, they don't get the Blue Star because they don't live up to the extremely high standards of Tall Tales. Today is about the same as always. The Daily News runs an editorial as U.S. reopens, VA must not make the same mistakes twice. Yeah, well, we don't have any. We've got some Veterans Affairs facility here, but this is not as timely or as topical as it ought to be. So I'm not going to spend any time with it at all. I go straight to the Post. The Post says restrictions will keep tourism hibernating for a while. So what's the plan? A few weeks back, we heard the government of Guam announce? I heard the governor announce. I've never heard the government of Guam announce anything, it being an inanimate object. A few weeks back, we heard the government of Guam announce a plan to reopen the tourism industry on July 1. But the prospect of tourists coming back to the island for vacations starting next month is dim. Gov Guam has specifically announced tourists from Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan will be welcome once again. But July isn't realistic. Even if Gov Guam isn't planning to require travelers from the above markets to stay in government-designated quarantine facility, once they arrive on Guam, chances are they still won't visit next month. Taiwan, Japan, and Korea still have 14-day quarantine policies in place for arriving passengers. Tourists from these markets can't be expected to pay for a 5-day or even 2-week vacation on Guam when they will be stuck in a quarantine site for another 14 days once they arrive home. Online travel sites still don't offer direct Taiwan and South Korea travel to Guam. Travelers can visit Guam via certain transit hubs, but the cost is double to triple what a tourist had been accustomed to. Guam Visitors Bureau Board Chair Sonny Addis did say it was very important to set a date so the businesses can respond and prepare so that when Japan and Korea lift their quarantine requirements, Guam is ready to serve. But it's worth bringing up these challenges because the thousands of workers in the tourist industry and the hundreds of small to large business owners whose cash flow depend heavily on tourists returning in mass numbers will need a continued lifeline or a helping hand, at least over the next several months. I got to jump in here. I don't think they're going to get it from the legislature. The legislature has more important things to do. Who's going to get double pay, and whether or not government employees are going to be able to choose their insurance company. That's all. That's about the only things they've been concentrating on for the last several weeks. We need our local elected officials to focus on a survival plan for the tourism industry and the economy in general. Senators, the administration, and GVB should make this a priority topic and let the public know what's going on. Hiring seasoned politicians like former Governor Carl Gutierrez as general manager and former travel retail manager Jerry Paris might help. They were around when the Asian financial crisis rippled through Guam's shores in the 1990s. But the scale of tourism slowdown then can't be compared to the zero arrivals in Guam's tourism now, and possibly continuing on in the next few months. There must be realistic approaches to help the businesses and workers get through what could be a longer period of inactivity in the tourist industry. The federal government has done its part, providing money for grants, loans, and unemployment benefits. But the flow of federal money will slow down at some point. The local government needs to take action on things it has control over. We're talking about perhaps lowering taxes. Even the gross receipts tax, which ought to remain at 5%, according to the governor, for how long, Real Joe Cruz?
For a moment in time, sir. Forever.
Forever, yeah. Or holding off on some of the fees that make doing business on Guam more challenging than in other locations. Cost cutting in Gov Guam is vital too. Got to interrupt again. Cost cutting. Maybe we could start a subcommittee composed of Jillian Leon Guerrero and Michelle Paris to tell us how we could cut costs in the government. Where's that horn, Real Joe Cruz? Yeah, Governor Jillian was hired to a job that will pay her to stay home, as was Michelle. Tells you how much we're really conserving our money here. Back to the editorial. Whichever ideas and plans our government officials would like to consider, let's hear them. We need big, bold ideas and not a rehash of more of the same. Well, I'll give you the blue star on this one today, Guam Daily Post. And let's see, it's probably another Joe. No, it's our Fred. Okay. Good afternoon, our Fred.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. I want to get the first crack at you before everyone else does.
Good call, our Fred.
And, I was trying to get on Ray's show earlier to discuss the same topic that you're bringing up, but he was really busy, a lot of callers, and so I didn't get to, but I'm glad I got on yours. So just to start, the foundation of everything is private enterprise, private business. That's what you're talking about, and that's what is the driving engine for Guam. Simple. That's it. Private enterprise, private businesses. And what GovGuam is doing is just moving the goalpost. As they say July 1st, and then they go on and say, you hear about the quarantines coming up with the other countries from foreign tourists returning, or their people returning from foreign travel, which will deter them from traveling, period, to Guam. So what did they say at GVB? Pretty much their message is to the point of moving the goalpost. Like, we're preparing, it gives businesses a chance to prepare, and hotels and so forth. I think what they've been doing for the past 3 months is preparing already. So, private citizens are leaving Guam. They're sick and tired of how the situation's being handled. We have, thank God, we have only a few cases here compared to other places in the world. And I think it was Trump said it once. Let's not make the cure more of a problem than the virus itself. I think we're over curing our island, where we're to the point we're hurting it already. Actually, it's hurt already. So you got businesses packing up and leaving. I won't name which ones because we all know, we've seen it in the paper and on Facebook, who's already closed up and gutted out and left. There's more leaving. Private citizens are leaving. So where's the GRT going to come from, or taxes for the government going to come from when you hurt the private engine, right? So,
right, Fred.
And another thing on GRT is, how can you still charge businesses 5% GRT when they're either breaking even or making below break even? So you're going to actually charge businesses GRT on negative revenues?
That's the way a GRT works. You don't have to make a profit. Yeah.
Exactly. So businesses are losing money, and you're going to charge them tax on the loss they've made already. So, it's simple math, really. It's negative revenue. It's not a positive revenue that they're paying on. It's negative revenue. So you take a loss, and then you take a further loss by paying the GRT. Where's the sense in that?
Good point,
Some
Fred.
people have proposed a 0% GRT till the end of the year, because businesses are lucky enough even to break even at this point, because the local population is either fearful of going out or don't have enough funds in their pockets to spend, or it's a combination of both of these things. So if if GovGuam wants to drive private businesses to continue to close or hurt, first of all, I'll be enlightened to see how many new business licenses are being issued come how many months from now. So if you hurt the private businesses, where's the money for GovGuam going to come? They're going to go bankrupt. Pay less Fridays. That's pretty much where it's coming to. The Fed money is going to run out, and it can only hold on so much. So tourism is not coming. You already saw today's paper on that. So GVB, very little GVB can do on this. COVID-19 and other countries have a big part in dictating to us when tourists will return to Guam. Plus, don't forget the whole world is competing for these tourists. So, I mean, good luck, Guam. And with the flights, the airfares coming to Guam so high, they'd rather fly domestically and not have to worry about quarantine. So, how is GovGuam going to help and assist businesses right now? If they don't, it's come to a point where you're like at the edge of the cliff. If you don't, it's all going to backfire on GovGuam. That's pretty much what I wanted to say, and I think I'm sure you agree with me because what you were mentioning earlier from the editorial is in line with this.
I agree with everything you said, Fred. You made some really good points. So I want to thank you for calling in and helping me get the show off to a good start. Thank you, Fred. Our Fred.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our Fred. Some good ideas. And as I'm sitting here listening to our Fred, if we have to have a gross receipts tax, why not modify the tax so that if a business shows no profit, there's no gross receipts tax owing? Then by way of explanation, the way a gross receipts tax works, if you have $100 worth of revenue, that is that you sell widgets and you sell $100 worth of widgets, 5% gross receipts tax means that you pay $5 in gross receipts tax on that 100 widgets. Now, if you paid $110 for the 100 widgets that you sold, you're not going to pay any income tax because you didn't have any profit. But you're still going to pay that gross receipts tax, even though for that particular period of time you lost $10. So Fred makes a really good point. You know, a lot of businesses are not profitable. They're just trying to keep the doors open, hanging on until the tourists come back. So why not come up with a structure that would allow businesses that, although they have revenue, don't show a profit, to not have to pay gross receipts tax until they do? Very good idea, our Fred. There's only one thing wrong with our Fred's idea.
And what's that?
It wasn't mine.
Ah.
Well, it kind of was. I mean, our Fred kind of planted the seed there. Very thoughtful, our Fred.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So, but here we said, and he makes a good point, you know, not a single government employee lost a nickel over this, you know, this government-imposed layoff. And every government employee drew a paycheck every payday. Lots of folks were laid off, lost their jobs, closed their businesses, are never going to reopen again. The government sails along fine. And then our legislature, who's supposed to be representing all the people, they're tripping over themselves, trying to pay double pay to government employees who came to work and did the job they were hired for. They haven't been able to do that, but now they're scrapping about providing a government insurance program where employees wouldn't be just stuck with one government insurance program. They would have a choice, which I think is something that's really unheard of in the private industry. And, of course, the newspaper says it would cost, or actually the burn is that it would cost an extra $10 million. Oh, we don't care. Freedom of choice. We want choice. And they are really going hammer and tongs after this. There are a few people that are sensible, but, you know, so many of the senators think, well, these are GovGuanum employees. We gotta keep them happy. So pay no attention to those folks down there in San Vitores Boulevard with huge amounts of money invested in large, empty hotels. We don't care that much about them. And not too long ago, I made a rather apocryphal prediction as to where we're going to go. And it's not fun, and it doesn't look good, but I'm going to share it again. My suspicion is that we'll never come back to where we were. We were bringing in $1.6 million as you were 1.6 million tourists a year. We had a thriving tourism industry. The investment climate was such that investors saw fit to build a new hotel, the Tsubaki Towers. I don't think we'll ever get back to that point. What I think you're going to see is some hotels that are boarded up, closed up, and only the fittest will survive. The ones that have figured out either how to keep their costs low enough to be competitive with other jurisdictions, or their accommodations of such a quality that they compete. But the weaker hotels will be weeded out. And as the hotels don't open, a lot of folks are not going to have jobs. And as the income from the tourist industry declines, then obviously the amount of money that we have to pay the favored class of our people, meaning government employees, declines. So we're finally going to get down to the point where we're not going to be able to provide for government employees what they're fighting for right now: double pay, choice in insurance, etc. Okay, well, that's so much for Zemi Ikotny, and a very probative call coming from our Fred. Okay, let's take a break here.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hakaʻi and Tumon are now open for takeout and free delivery services in selected locations. For more information, call 479-2652 or 3 or 969-2652. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comforts of your own home. They take your favorite local dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonpropertiesguam.com.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So there we are, back again, and I'm looking at the card, and this is what I've got on the card. I've got Troy versus Janella, 24 days. I've got Tina versus Emergency, 19 days. I've got a social worker versus Minneapolis. I've got Woke Jim versus Bias. Yeah, I didn't know that Jim was woke. I don't think he was, but he's woke now. And then a little more Kilani Regis versus Minneapolis, Tom Shea versus looting and rioting, etc. I still got some things to say about the whole Black Lives Matter, rioting, looting, etc. And I think that probably is going to occupy the rest of the program. If not, then I'll finally get to Romeo versus the media and Bavacqua versus USA. Okay, starting out with Troy versus Janela. It has now been 24 days since Crystal Paco, also known as Crystal Paco San Augustine, issued her immortal statement. Carlo Branch has publicly stated that he directed Ms. Carrera's actions that day, and the lieutenant governor is satisfied that he has taken full responsibility. As the responsible party, the apology was his to make. It has been made abundantly clear that this situation will not be repeated. So I can tell you that it has been 24 days since Crystal Paco San Augustine cleared the air about Janela Carrera's failure to follow the lieutenant governor's order and apologize for muting mics and cutting off reporters in mid-question. And she has not done either one since Crystal cleared the air. No muting of mics, no cutting off of reporters. So we're gonna keep watching though. Ronald Reagan, trust but verify, right? And then the next is Tina versus emergency, and I think we can all we can all feel good. We can all sort of count our blessings that we have not faced with an emergency of dealing with health or safety. And the reason I know that we haven't dealt with an emergency dealing with health or safety is because our speaker, Tina Rose Munya Barnes, has not called a legislature into emergency session. She has not waived the public hearing requirement on any bills, meaning she must not have detected any danger to the public health or safety like she did on May 20, so that she could proceed with the 4 double pay bills the next day. Boy, there was a real danger for public health and safety there. It looked like we weren't going to be able to pay government employees double for doing the work they were hired to do. You remember that. So Tina called the legislature into emergency session. She said that at the same time, she said, I'm waiving the public hearing requirement on these 4 bills. So the legislature met the next day. Joe San Augustine, one of the authors of the bill, said, I want to recess until June 1st so we could have a public hearing on these bills. What kind of emergency was that? Well, I'll tell you, it was no emergency at all. So Tina took an important part of the legislative structure and Nancy Pelosi'd it right in front of our eyes. She held it up and she tore it up and told us this section here about emergencies, waiving public hearings, it doesn't mean squat. Because what it means is if I feel like it, we don't have to have public hearings on bills that I want to see moved, like the ones I sponsored myself. So anyhow, the countdown on Tina has been 19 days. Okay, next item on the calendar here is a social worker versus Minneapolis. And I got this from one of our international radio listening audience, Truth Posse members. And here's how it goes. Subject, I'm the rapid response social worker who replaced the police in Minneapolis. I'm not going to lie. This is what he says. This is his story. I'm not going to lie. This isn't exactly what I expected, lying here in the hospital. I mean, it's only a few broken bones, a punctured lung, and some stitches to the head. but I almost feel betrayed. 3 weeks ago, when I took the 5-hour online course to become an unarmed rapid response social worker in Minneapolis, I thought I was helping mankind. Now, by way of background, Real Joe Cruz, you know that the Minneapolis City Council has voted to abolish the police force in Minneapolis.
I am aware of that, sir.
And if you watch TV, the mayor of Minneapolis was asked, out before a crowd for a Q&A session, and they said, "Are you going to abolish the police force in Minneapolis?" He said no. They booed him and basically chased him out of the place. They don't need no stinking police in Minneapolis. So this is what we get with no police. This guy said 3 weeks ago when I took the 5-hour online course to become an unarmed rapid response social worker, I thought I was helping mankind. Is your tummy warm yet, Real Joe Cruz? I thought I was helping mankind. After all, with the police abolished, somebody had to be there to mitigate when people had inevitable disagreements. My first mitigation didn't go great. I was called to the scene of a bank robbery, which there wasn't supposed to be any bank robberies once the capitalist-driven oppression of the police no longer created crime. But this guy apparently didn't get the memo, I guess. He was a Latinx male presenting person about 5'6", holding a shotgun. Thinking back on my extensive training, I tried to calm things down with a breathing exercise. But he just kept yelling and pointing the gun at me, which again, is not supposed to happen. I told him that as a white cis man, I couldn't, you know what that means, cis? A cisgendered man is a person with male plumbing who is attracted to members of the opposite sex.
Oh.
It's come to quite a pass where we have to identify that which we used to think was the norm, right?
You mean like a regular guy?
Like a real guy, yeah. But no more. We have to have we have to have special identifiers for that, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I told him that as a white cis man, I could never know the trauma the Spanish-speaking people suffered under white genocidal maniacs like Cortez. And while his desire to rob the bank was understandable, even laudable, we have collectively decided not to support such actions and that resources were available to him. Okay, let me see. It was probably another Joe, right? Yeah, another Joe and R. James. Okay. I'm going to just come back to this in a minute, but let me just check and see what another Joe's got on his mind here. Hello, another Joe.
Uncle Bob, I was listening. It's a very good. It's like elementary school when the teacher's reading a story.
Yeah, once upon a time, another Joe.
And I think it's also it's called. I've heard it said a gender assigned at birth, male or female gender assigned at birth, meaning that's the way you were born.
Yeah, but we don't do that anymore. Now, you know, when a baby is born and somebody runs into the male parent, I'm not going to say the father, or maybe the female parent, you have to ask them, what sex is the baby? And the female parent is going to say, we don't know. He's not 20 years, excuse me, we don't know. They aren't 20 years old yet. How can we tell?
So, but I have to admit to you, Uncle Bob, listening to your stories, it gets so interesting that sometimes I'm trying to figure out what are all the different things that I called for? But I think the primary thing I wanted to ask to bring up was perhaps it's possible. I know you don't like giving people the benefit of the doubt.
No.
But possibly the legislature was worried that they'd be blamed for not paying the first responders or the frontliners. For possibly they wouldn't show up if it was hinted that they would not be paid for double pay, or for their being in the front line, so to speak. I'm just giving I don't know if it's good enough to be a theory or if it's just a hypothesis, but I just want to bring that up, and maybe hopefully we can persuade the speaker or her staff to explain that one, right? Why it was an emergency session, and the other thing is the public relations person for the governor, the lady, possibly they're trying to hint to not bring up the issue because it's already been, what was the word that Ms. Paco said? Been resolved, or what was the word that she used?
Crystal Paco San Augustine said, as the responsible party, the apology was solely his, meaning Carlo, and she got that wrong. She should have said solely theirs to make when she was talking about Carlo Branch, right? It has been made abundantly clear that this situation will not be repeated. Well, that's
abundantly clear.
Yeah,
that's what she said.
That's
so
what she
maybe
said.
She's trying to hint that other people would understand now that it's abundantly clear that it doesn't have to be addressed, and the public relations lady doesn't have to apologize. But if anyone from the governor's office is listening to you, I think they're getting the hint that that's something that you want to revisit and address. Is she ever going to give the apology that was required by the lieutenant governor? And what was the emergency that the speaker had? Those are the two issues that you're doing the count for, right? Is that right, Uncle Bob?
Exactly. And the reason that they are still on the calendar is because politicians tend to forget something if it doesn't bite them.
Yeah. And Uncle Bob, one last thought, if you don't mind. It was in the news that Carlotta Leon Guerrero was going to try to get the attention of the negotiators for the compact with the COFA countries, and maybe try to get some more considerations for this community, and maybe reimbursement and assistance for the residents that are from these COFA countries. And I just want to put out there, maybe these COFA countries would invite us to the table if our national government doesn't want to. I don't know if it's way out of line there, Uncle Bob, by saying that, but
I think the president of the president of the FSM did say that he'd like to see Guam at the table.
Also, he's inviting us.
Well, I don't know that he has the ability to invite. He said that he'd like to see us. That's my recollection. But
well, good for him. Sorry, go ahead.
But I've spoken to this many times before, and that is that if I were the governor of Guam, I would find out where those negotiations are going to be held. And on the first day of the negotiations, I would show up in the parking lot of that building with a can of gasoline and a lighter. And I would send a message inside that if you don't let me come inside, I'm going to self-immolate right here in the parking lot.
Yeah, don't do that, Uncle Bob. We need you.
Well, thank you very much, Another Joe. I appreciate you.
But maybe we could also have them suggest them to put the idea of becoming new U.S. territories back on the table, and then they could all become new U.S. citizens, and we'll all be on a fair playing field. We'll all be equal because we all be U.S. citizens, and they can have their own organic acts, just like Guam. But I mean, I don't know if that's way out of line by saying that, Uncle Bob, by bringing it up or just suggesting it. But
well, we don't. People that are interested in stuff like that, like our commission on so-called decolonization. They're more interested in going to the International Court of Justice or, a couple of other international bodies like that. They're not interested in practical things that would have a real impact on our lives here.
Yeah. Hey, Uncle Bob, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I'll keep listening to your stories.
Okay, another Joe. And I had another James on the line. If you'll call back another James, I'll put you right on. Not ringing. Okay. Coming up to that first break or second break.
Horizon Properties can empathize with individual property owners during this trying time. The last thing you should worry about is collecting rent or sending a repairman to your property. With their web-hosted property management system, Horizon can reach out to tenants, vendors, and owners alike and maintain the current prohibition requirements. Let Horizon Properties take care of it all. Help flatten the curve by remaining safe at home. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792 or visit horizonpropertiesguam.com. Horizon Properties, always there for you.
Cocoa Coffee Company mugs are now here. Show pride for your island as you enjoy your delicious Circle K coffee. Each generously sized 16-ounce mug is etched with Guam-inspired images like Chief Gadao, Serena, Two Lovers, and many more. The Cocoa Coffee Company mug collection is available for a limited time only, so don't miss out. Get yours today and collect them all. Exclusively available at Circle K locations. A portion of the proceeds go toward the Cocoa Bird Recovery Program.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Tumon are now open for your dining experience. Necessary precautions and safety protocols were assessed in order to maintain a clean and sanitized area for you and your family while dining in. Join Mezcla in Hagåtña and Tumon, locations for a true taste of Guam.
Okay, so I guess R. James thought better of it, huh? Well, if you want to call back, R. James, we're waiting for your call. Being one of the hours, you get special privileges, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Sir, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so I was reading this narrative from a social worker in Minneapolis telling us what it's like in Minneapolis since they wanted to abolish the police force. And he's talking about his first gig was at a bank robbery. And he said that I told him that as a white cis man, he told the bank robber, I could never know the trauma the Spanish-speaking people suffered under the white genocidal maniacs like Cortez. And while his desire to rob the bank was understandable, even laudable, we have collectively decided not to support such actions, but resources were available to him. That's when he hit me in the head with the butt of his gun. I think it was the butt of his gun anyway. When I woke up, I realized this job was not going to be as easy as I thought it would be. That was just one person, though. One person who is really rich now. But assume he represented the entire criminal class that would have been the height of privilege, right? After all, it's only money, and it was just a slight concussion. The next day went remarkably better. I was called to a gang fight that was about to get very heated. No guns this time, just knives and brass knuckles. I suggested we all sit in a circle and use a feelings chart to determine what had brought us all to that place. I did not, of course, suggest that why I was there was for some inherently better or more virtuous purpose, and I think they really got it. They stopped fighting each other and stole my wallet instead. That's progress. It was yesterday, my third day on the job, when things really got dicey. There were reports of revolutionary distribution of corporate assets, which used to go by the patently racist name looting. I like that sentence. I'm going to read it again, Real Joe Cruz. There were reports of revolutionary redistribution of corporate assets, which used to go by the patently racist name looting. I consulted my rapid response social worker app, and it advised me to start gently chanting, "Hope is the thing with feathers." Dickinson. It's a technique that was developed in Denmark to de-escalate harmful situations with poetry. The rest is a blur. There were a few baseball bats to the legs, a large glass bottle of something sticky, organic maple syrup maybe, was smashed on my head. People were kicking me in the ribs, and I saw a few people fighting over a Ralph Lauren down comforter they were stealing. Oh, excuse me, I mean redistributing. The comforter ripped. There was chaos everywhere, and I woke up in the ambulance. Well, I was the thing with feathers. This morning when I woke up, my supervisor was right there next to my bed. I thought maybe he had brought flowers or one of those shiny balloons from the hospital gift shop. But actually, he had a long complaint form detailing the ways in which I had failed in my job and failed the collective community. I was still kind of groggy. I didn't catch it all, but something about a failure to recognize and ameliorate systems of oppression. Which, I mean, yeah, probably. I'm not giving up, though. Nobody said this would be easy. They didn't say it would put me in the ICU, but that's beside the point. Let me have some music here, Real Joe Cruz. This is the final here. We're creating a better world. One where police, the real criminals, no longer exist, and more equitable forms of community support for need-based, compel law suggestion can thrive. Are we there yet? No. But once I'm out of the hospital and off suspension, I'll be right back to work, making America a better place. Is your tummy warm now, Real Joe Cruz?
Oh, it's super warm, sir.
Yeah, this is a really touching piece. Okay, just honk the horn a couple of times so people will realize that was part of the facetious part of the program. Now the next part deals with kind of the same thing, but it ain't facetious. This is Minneapolis versus residents. The owner of a manufacturing company in Minneapolis that was burned to the ground during last week's violent riots has announced he is relocating his company, taking dozens of jobs out of the city due to the failure of the city's Democrat leaders to protect businesses. They don't care about my business. Chris Weyerbeck, president and owner of 7 Sigma Inc., told the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, "They didn't protect our people. We were all on our own." Now, I want to make sure I get this to Mariana Cook-Hun and Dr. Tom Shea, because they'll want to make sure that they find out who burned this guy's plant down, so that they can demonstrate in support of him maybe next Sunday. Okay, he goes on to say, as we watched a nearby business burn to the ground, The fire engine was just sitting there, but they wouldn't do anything. The city's first survey of property damage shows that nearly 1,000 commercial properties in Minneapolis were damaged during the riots, including 52 businesses that were completely destroyed and 30 other locations that sustained severe damage. But I have to, I can't get too carried away with this. I have to stop here and repeat a really important matter. Black Lives Matter. The Star Tribune reported, quote, owners and insurance experts estimate the cost of the damage could exceed $500 million. That would make the Twin Cities riots the second costliest civil disturbance in U.S. history, trailing only those in Los Angeles in 1992, which were also sparked by racial tensions with police and had a $1.4 billion in damages in today's dollars. Wyro Beck told the Star Tribune that it was too late to change his mind about keeping his company in the city, adding that before the riots, he never in his wildest nightmare would have thought about relocating his business. An interesting choice of words, wildest nightmare. A video went viral this week that showed the aftermath of the violent riots in Minneapolis, with commentators saying the city looked like it had been through a war. Wyro Beck's move to relocate his business out of the city comes as a, quote, veto-proof majority of Minneapolis City Council members have announced that they intend to disband the Minneapolis Police Department following the death of George Floyd. That'll make it better. We're here because we hear you. This is a quote. We're here because we hear you. We're here today because George Floyd was killed by the Minneapolis police. We're here because here in Minneapolis and cities across the United States, it's clear that our existing system of policing and public safety is not keeping our communities safe. Minneapolis City Council President Lisa Bender said, our efforts at incremental reform have failed. Period. Our commitment is to do what is necessary to keep every single member of our community safe. This is her idea of safety. I wonder what danger looks like. Maybe she can chat with Tina Rose Munya Barnes on that one. Okay, we'll come back to Minneapolis right after our big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Another city looks to slash police spending. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Some members of the city council in Seattle say they want to cut that city's $400 million police budget in half.
I am committed to defunding the police, to using most of that money, 50% ideally, to invest back into communities that we failed.
City Council Budget Committee Chair Teresa Mosqueda also wants to stop the police from using chemical irritants like tear gas and pepper spray. After several nights of protests outside Seattle's Eastern Precinct Police Station, police Monday packed up and left the place.
This is an exercise in trust and de-escalation.
But Police Chief Carmen Best says they did have the windows boarded up and the building coated with fire retardant first. Appalling is what the White House calls plans to defund the police in Minneapolis. President Trump telling a meeting of law enforcement leaders yesterday.
Sometimes you'll see some horrible things like we witnessed recently, but 99, I say 99.9, but let's go with 99% of them are great people, and they've done jobs that are record-setting.
Bond set at $1 million yesterday for Derek Chauvin, the fired Minneapolis police officer accused of murdering George Floyd 2 weeks ago. Floyd will be buried today.
George Floyd's journey home ends with a private funeral service in Houston before being laid to rest next to his mother. Thousands lining up at a church yesterday to say their final goodbyes at a public viewing.
It just hit home to me, and I just felt like it was important for me and my children to come out.
You see people from all different background, colors, and creeds that are coming together saying, hey, enough is enough.
Floyd died May 25th after a Minneapolis police officer pressed his knee into his neck for several minutes. Floyd's death sparking protests worldwide over racial injustice and police brutality. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
America is listening to Fox News.
As we emerge from the effects of the global pandemic, Security Title is rethinking how to best serve our customers. With our houses clean and closets reorganized, here's a reminder to take a look at the title to your house and other real estate. Is your trust in order? Is it time to update your wills? Do you have the best interest rate available on your home? As we get back to work, there's no better time to revisit your most valuable asset, your property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Haggadah and Tuman are now open for takeout and free delivery services in selected locations. For more information, call 479-2652 or 3 or 969-2652. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comforts of your own home. They take your favorite local dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
It's primary election day in 5 states today.
West Virginia was supposed to hold its primary in mid-May, and Georgia was supposed to hold the presidential primary in March and the state primary in May. Now both states are going today. But viruses and rescheduling and protests didn't appear to dampen turnout so far. As of last Friday, more than 1 million votes had been cast in Georgia, most of them by mail, creating a record number of absentee votes cast in the state. In West Virginia, more than 250,000 votes were cast before today, which was a record high. Now, North Dakota, Nevada, and South Carolina are holding state primaries. In South Carolina, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is fending off 3 primary challengers. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
A federal appeals court has ordered a lower court to dismiss legal challenges against the Trump administration's ban on travel from predominantly Muslim countries. The appeals court judges finding that a lower court judge misinterpreted a Supreme Court ruling on national security concerns. That ban has been in place for more than 3 years. Harvard's medical school says its research on hospitalizations, travel, and search engine data suggests the coronavirus activity began in Wuhan, China in autumn of last year, not in December, as had been reported. The World Health Organization now says the virus is continuing to spread in several countries, but in its latest update says the spread of the virus by people not showing any symptoms appears to be rare. Former Director of National Intelligence Richard Grinnell says the effort to drain the swamp in Washington must continue, telling Fox's Tucker Carlson tonight corruption is systemic.
We have a real problem in Washington, D.C., because it's a system that is no longer really Republicans and Democrats pushing against each other to create a good policy. It's no longer a fight between Republicans and Democrats. It's a fight between Washington and the rest of America.
I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Horizon Properties can empathize with individual property owners during this trying time. The last thing you should worry about is collecting rent or sending a repairman to your property. With their web-hosted property management system, Horizon can reach out to tenants, vendors, and owners alike and maintain the current prohibition requirements. Let Horizon Properties take care of it all. Help flatten the curve by remaining safe at home. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792 or visit HorizonPropertiesGuam.com. Horizon Properties, always there for you.
This this Father's Day, be one of 7 lucky winners of Circle K's Ultimate Father's Day Package. Get a case of tomahawk steak, a bottle of whiskey, a case of beer, and a Bacchus beer bag. That's a $300 value. Purchase $25 or more in fuel, or any 6-pack or more of Miller Lite, Coors Light, or Blue Moon to receive an entry form. Tune in to The Ray Gibson Show on The Point for more ways to win. Winners will be announced on June 17. Visit 76CircleKGuam.com or any Circle K location for more details.
Half a day. This is Michelle from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Another inspiring halftime show here on Tall Tales. So we go from the steppes of Russia to the city of Minneapolis, from the Napoleonic Wars to the George Floyd Wars in Minneapolis. Picking up on this article from the Daily Wire, which is titled, "It Begins, Rioters Burned Down Minneapolis Manufacturing. Now they're relocating, taking jobs with them." So I got R. James on the line. I'm not going to make him wait any longer. I'm going to stop what I'm doing and get on the line with R. James. Hello, R. James.
Afternoon, Bob. How's it going?
Really good.
Sorry, I missed you a little while ago. My battery in my phone went on protest and refused to work.
Hey, R. James, it sounds like I've got 2 R. Jameses on the phone.
Oh, okay. How about now?
Now you're down to 1. Yeah, that's better. Okay, well, I'm glad you're back.
Well, I'm curious as to how deep the idiocracy really goes here. Correct me if I'm wrong. When I was with the Sheriff's Department, the hierarchy used to be the police officers work for the chief of police. The chief of police works for the city council and the mayor. And these happen to be the same mayors and city council that want to disband, dismantle, defund the police because they've got all of these long-running systemic issues and problems that have never been able to be corrected. But the city council and the mayors are the ones that should have corrected the problems. Or am I misunderstanding that?
I think you're right. Now, this lady who is the chairman or the chairperson of the city council said they've tried an incremental approach, but it just hasn't worked. Sounds
like ineffectual management and oversight to me. But the next time they have a bank robbery that turns into a hostage situation and the robbers are throwing bodies out the front door because they're not getting their demands met, maybe they can send one of those 3-hour-long, highly trained, unarmed response workers to try to go talk them down.
Very good, yeah.
You know, I think they're actually trying. I think this is a concerted effort to create chaos to the point of social and physical anarchy just to try to get a duly elected president out of our office. That's really the conclusion. Now, I've never been a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist, but I'm really starting to think that that's the way this is leaning. I think they would eat their own young if it would get Mr. Trump out of office.
Well, that is a rather popular theory out there, James. You're not the first person to mention that.
Well, one last thing I'd like to mention to the international listening community, if anybody out there is hearing this, I guess they can disband police. I guess they can defund them. I guess they can do that on a city level. But if you have a sheriff that is a for Constitution sheriff, which I believe most of them are, I was with the Sheriff's Department myself for 5 years as I worked my way through college. If you have a good sheriff, you better, folks out there, you better bend over backwards to support them, because it sounds like there might not be any police left to come to your aid at 3 o'clock in the morning as 4 or 5 armed guys are hooking a chain up to your front door in the bumper of their truck to just jerk the whole front of your house off. Your sheriff may be the only thing that can save you and your family. So if you've got a good sheriff, you folks better bend over backwards to support them.
Well, I've heard a lot of commentators say that it's going to be very difficult to recruit people for police work in the future, because obviously the people on the other side are going to continue doing what they've always done. But it appears that the police are in a no-win situation, because if they enforce the law, they're the bad guys. If they don't enforce the law, then some people will think they're the bad guys. So it's kind of like turning into a no-win proposition.
Yeah, kind of like poor Mr. Trump, damned if you do and damned if you don't, which, by the way, you did hear about what happened yesterday in Buffalo, right? All 57 members of the Special Response Unit, the SRU SWAT team, they didn't all call in sick at the same time. They didn't go on strike. All 57 members turned in their resignation. They all quit and walked out the door.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I know about that, yeah.
So I think, you know the old saying, be careful what you wish for because you just might get it.
Good point.
I think we're quickly approaching that pivot point where things start to disintegrate on an exponential level. I hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong. I don't want that to happen. I'm all for the Constitution and living with rule of law, but if these supposedly educated individuals that are our mayors, our city councils, our county assemblies, the governors of the states, if they really start going down this road, they're going to create a no-win scenario for everyone, not just the police and law enforcement. It will literally, it'll go back to the old West. Everyone will travel armed, and if you've got any training or any experience at all, the terms OPSEC, head on a swivel, and taking care of your AO will become your primary. Every time you walk out the door, you're going to have to be thinking, okay, am I going to be able to protect everyone in my group? Am I going to have what I need in my pockets to be able to do that? Do I have enough gas in my car if I make a wrong turn and I'm on the wrong side of town? Am I going to be able to get out of there? That's literally what it's going to go back to. So, and that's very unfortunate. But I don't know. Nero fiddled as he watched Rome burn, so I don't know. Maybe our time as a decent society is up. I mean, it happens to all societies. It happens to every society on planet. It's happened to everyone. Maybe our number's up. I don't know.
Interesting thoughts, James. I'm glad you got back online. Thanks for calling in again. Yeah. Okay, R. James, some thought-provoking comment, and then I've got Senator Chris Duenas on the line. Good afternoon, Chris.
Top of the day, Your Honor, Honorable Marine, Senator, my favorite talk show host. Been a while.
It has.
Been a little bit busy, trying to stay away, not from Tall Tales, but maybe from national media for a little bit, just to kind of cleanse my brain, but I can't. I can't agree more with R. James, and you have it on the card. I listened quite a bit with your dialogue yesterday on Black Lives Matter movement. You know, Bob, what's so interesting is it is so easy to see, and I just hope, I guess I'm going to end with a hope and a prayer for a call to action, but it's so easy to see, particularly with the mainstream media stateside, just fanning the flames of all of this anarchy. And it's so easy to see with so many examples, like the colored lady whose deli got looted and pillaged, and she just goes on this massive rebuke of, don't tell me about Black Lives Mattering, being a colored woman, an investor in that shop and working there and telling folks to get a job and stop looting and damaging property. Reporting tonight on Fox News that you have one of the most violent weekends with shootings and murders in Chicago. A situation where a retired police officer, black gentleman, allegedly killed now by another black individual, robbing a store that he was a security guard at, and with absolutely no attention paid by the mainstream national media on that. This all has to be basically just a full-blown movement and has absolutely nothing to do with the hideous killing of George Floyd.
It's just a pretext. Yeah.
Absolute pretext. There's no question. And I agree with what R. James was talking about in terms of the degradation of societies and the end of great empires and the historic nature of that. I'm going to pray that the better sense of our people, particularly in our great country, the United States of America, and I'm just hoping that this absolutely provokes a call to action on the side of conservatives and basically just a buckling down, and making sure that the vote gets out in November. And I'm just praying that will be the sincere reaction to this absolute left lunacy. This idea of defunding, police officers and the law and order, aspect of our society. I mean, that getting away from, all their other lunatic ideas of the Green New Deal and all the stuff that they've failed at in terms of trying to sell to the people, the super loony left. This has got to be the craziest thing, this movement and this discussion nationwide. And like I said, it's so obvious, what the attempt is there. I mean, just the whole breakdown of law and order in any community is so ridiculous because it simply hurts the most vulnerable in any community because they have the least ability to defend themselves. I was listening to a national program where in a small city in between the westernmost portion of Washington State and Seattle, where there's protests that are breaking out too. It was a smaller community, but the community did band together and they basically just went all out and took up arms and protected their shops and protected their homes and protected their communities. And there was zero looting. because people were literally sitting out in front of their stores, in front of their shops, in front of their homes, armed to the teeth, saying, "Bring it on." And to think for a minute that that's where we would want to go, and to think for a minute that we would just eliminate all law and order by defunding police officers who, by and large, put their lives on the line every day to maintain law and order and protect us. I can't help but repeat once again, that's absolute left lunacy. Moving back to Guam, we have our own version of it with our legislature that, as you mentioned before, just keeps tripping over themselves to spend tens of hundreds of millions of dollars on at least 3 programs, appropriation bills. You know, I just hope there's a call to action here on our island too, to really correct at the legislature and check this runaway train of just absolute having no reality check in terms of what we're going through. I completely agree with you on the issue of tourism. You know, Jerry Paris said the other day, and I did some simple math. It's really easy to see how our people are hurting. We're losing $200,000 an hour in income generated through tourism. That's hundreds of millions of dollars that is not going to come back, as you said, Bob, not only this year, but for years to come. So many people don't understand that how much money and investment, particularly with optional tours, such as scuba companies, the submarine, fishing charters, all the infrastructure that it takes for these small businesses that are dying right now, and the tens of hundreds of millions of dollars that it takes to build those businesses and the small margins that they have. It's going to be very tough to rebuild tourism going forward, and with an absolute, not a sober person as far as I'm concerned, well, maybe 1 or 2 at that legislature, and no check on this administration, we have our own left lunacy here, and I hope there's a call to action for conservative movement on island and definitely change the face of that legislature.
Well, something else to think about is the groups of virtue signalers that we have, the white coats for Black Lives, and they're demonstrating, the way I see it, they're demonstrating in favor of what's going on in Minneapolis. They would see themselves as being very virtuous, but I don't think you can slice it up that thin. So. Yeah. So you reach a point where you wonder, are there any people left who can really understand what's going on and take the appropriate action? Sometimes it seems like a pretty hard fight.
And I agree with you. It's why our James, myself, and even yourself. I hear the frustration. I definitely know that the Tall Tales posse and going through and reading comments, and definitely on Ray's show and otherwise. There's still a wide swath of people that see how ridiculous this lunacy is. But you're definitely right when you start seeing those individuals who hold a lot are held in high regard in our community, like the white coats and others, basically buying in. It really does, call into question and make it a lot tougher. The funniest thing is that I've never had this conversation with you, so I guess I'll just quiz you on it now. Guam, to me, is probably one of the most colorblind places I've ever been in my life. Now, I'm not super well traveled. I've done quite a bit of travel in Asia. I've done a little bit of travel in Europe, of course, all over, not all over, but several states. I would say at least 15 or more states visited or hung out in, at least for a little while. But Guam, instead of celebrating, I think its diversity and acceptance and understanding and tolerance, and just in general, genuine folks to bend to that kind of frustrates me. Do you agree that by and large, Guam is one of the most colorblind places on this earth?
I do. I really do, Chris.
Growing up, my mom is a statesider. I'm my father's Chamorro. I'm half. I grew up both in the great state of Michigan, notwithstanding the lunatic governor that they have right now. But otherwise, it's a great state. As a kid, I went to school in the 70s, stateside as well as here. We were lower middle class. We certainly weren't well-to-do. So I went to schools that were integrated, mostly colored, mostly black and Mexicans, and the majority, probably 30% white schools. Most of the schools that I went to, and so I saw racism straight up and right in my face. As a kid growing up in the 70s, going to school on Guam, but also stateside in the state of Michigan. And I tell you, being here on Guam, there was a little bit of stuff in those days, sometimes between the Filipino community maybe and locals. And sometimes you get some, stuff here with the FSM population. But by and large, when you really look at our workforces, when you look at the way we treat each other, when you look at our island as a whole, when disaster happens and things like that, by and large, I really think that that is our strength, and that is something that we really can draw on. And that's why I get frustrated when we get caught up in some of these things, kind of to follow a national narrative that I think doesn't necessarily apply here, and we should basically make ourselves more the example than anything else. And that's what I try to celebrate every day.
I agree with you. And when you got something like the white coats for Black Lives, if you scrape the paint and varnish off it, isn't that kind of a racist approach itself?
I think it is. And I think what really bothers me is you have folks that have memes. It was interesting because I was listening to that lunatic mayor of New York as well, basically talking about how he's trying to massage the issue of, oh no, we're just going to take some of the funding away from this New York Police Department, and the first thing that I want to do is put it into youth programs. Yeah, Mayor, because even as the director of the Department of Youth Affairs for almost 7 years, the biggest thing that I saw, the reason why those kids were misguided and misbehaved and the problems that they had was broken families, was an education system that wasn't educating them properly, so they were making poor decisions. All the things that a government should be doing and all the things that a government shouldn't be doing, trying to take away family values and the nuclear family and things that we try to promote. So when I see people who have resources, they can actually put their money where their mouth is to help the very people that they're saying to try to help when they virtue signal, drives me nuts.
Agreed, Chris.
I mean, really, I had this discussion with another friend of mine on the issue of kneeling. You on this issue of kneeling during the national anthem. You look at like a guy like A.J. Wyatt, the gentleman from Texas. When the floods came and he used his celebrity, he tried to raise $500,000, ended up raising like $80 million for flood victims and things all over Texas, to help folks. These celebrities have power to raise money, to do things, to go in there, like Emmett Smith and other people from Emmett Smith from the Cowboys and other people that actually sitting down with the president saying, how can we reform the system and how can we help our kids in the cities? That's where the action's at. Not just jumping on a movement so you can hold up a sign or put your name on something that's popular for now. Where the rubber hits the road is in the community, helping these nonprofits and these other organizations that are trying to help folks. Not just virtue signaling and getting on board with some crazy movement right now. Like our James said, that some people honestly would literally probably eat their own just to make sure that they can take out a president who's really, I think, trying to do great things for our nation. So I've probably taken way too much of your time, Bob, but I guess I saved it up since I haven't been around for a while.
Well, I'm glad you called, Chris. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks again.
Right on, Bob. Enjoy the show and looking forward to the balance of the time.
Okay. So we got the 7th inning stretch coming up, and right after the 7th inning stretch, je suis les hommes de France.
Oui, oui.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
As we stand up to coronavirus by standing back with social distancing, Bank Pacific reminds you that you can come to the bank without going to the bank. Use many of our other delivery platforms like online banking at bankpacific.com, accessing cash at our ATMs, shopping with our debit cards. For businesses, we have secure cash and check drop windows, and we are employing a new smarter mobile app with remote deposit capture in the next few weeks. We're all in this together, and together we will win. Bank Pacific. Where others put branches, we place roots. Member FDIC.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonpropertiesguam.com.
So here we are, Wrigley Field, Chicago, Illinois, and we're going to go from there straight to Paris. And our good friend Frenchie. Good afternoon, Frenchie.
Good afternoon, Bob. I see, I heard that Joe wants to wee-wee. You have to tell him it's a cross to the head.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, I was listening to a lot of the callers today. I mean, a lot of it makes sense. My take is that what they're seeing and what they are analyzing is the symptoms and not the real cause of the disease. You know, you talked often about the national government, which I call the deep state. And people always have, oh, well, that's a conspiracy theory. But basically what it is D.C. versus the rest of the U.S. And it's a bunch of elites, and they are in both parties. And their attitude is that they know better, and let us run the country. We don't need elections. We don't need all that, as long as you listen to what we tell you. And then the last few days have been very worrisome in the sense that you've seen, and two Marines on top of it, you know, Mad Dog Mattis and Ketty came out openly, which is very rare for military people, even retired one, to criticize the president on his policies or intentions of policies. And two more of Obama's appointees joined them. And it's very revealing of the strength of the national government into pushing back when they don't like something. You know, Trump was elected on an idea that we should get out of all those costly and endless war in the Middle East and other places like Afghanistan, and we should refocus on making the country healthy and don't go into a war unless we have a direct involvement into it, like we are being threatened or otherwise. And you have people in all those administrations, and we've seen it, and we're seeing it right now with this Senate hearing on all that FISA scandal and all those things, where basically you had people from the previous administration who spied listen to and try to frame people of the oncoming administration, which has never been happening before in the history of this country. You had people that basically used the power of the IRS, of the intelligence community, of the FBI, of the DOJ, to try to counter a duly elected president. And they think they were going to get away with it because they all thought that the other candidate was going to win. And they knew she's part of the system. But, they got caught with their pants down, and they have an issue. And in order to really understand what we're going through right now, you have to understand what we have been doing for the last 30 years overseas. Our national government has had a theory of the chaos strategy, which is basically something that was invented by a high-ranking CIA official, which said that we have to create chaos in countries of the Middle East and other places around the Black Sea and so on, in order to create instability which will benefit us. All right, and in doing so, you should not confuse the chaos strategy of the CIA with the chaos operation, which some people might be familiar, which was started by Johnson and then continued by Nixon, which was the spying of U.S. citizens, and which was denounced after the Watergate and so on. But this is about foreign strategy, and basically we went in and tried to take out all the strong governments in the Middle East that were non-religious governments. You're old enough to remember the Ba'ath Party, which were basically socialistic, nationalistic parties, which were all in Iraq, in Syria, in Egypt. And, of course, we didn't like that because they were anti-Israel. But we basically took out one after the other all those governments. And the way we proceeded in order to take out those governments was several levels. So we had what was called the Colored Revolution. I'm sure you remember that.
I do.
You had the Arab Spring. You had, on a different level, but very important, the Obama Cairo's address, where basically he opened the arms of the United States to the Muslim Brotherhood. And on the different level, we have, under the guise of supporting liberty inspire demonstration, we encourage the destruction of state structure, including the police, the judiciary, and the armed forces. And we saw that in Ukraine as well. And then when I was telling you that the Republicans and the Democrats are all in together on this, you just need to see who was in Maidan when we did the coup against the duly elected of the Ukrainian president. You had McCain, who you work on his campaign for president, Klobuchar, who also ran for president, and the very interesting character from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham. All those people were in there supporting freedom-loving Ukrainians to try to start a war with Russia, which Hillary was pushing to. And you have the same characters that went to meet with al-Baghdadi in Syria, on Syrian territory, against Syria's will, in order to promote the same thing in Syria. And we've seen that civil war that happened in Syria, which basically destroyed the country completely, and where we pretended to be fighting Muslim extremism, while at the same time where we were aiding, abetting, arming, and paying Muslim extremists to fight the Syrian government. We've seen the same thing In Egypt, Obama administration helped the overthrow of the government of Egypt and replaced them by the Muslim Brotherhood, which is also in control of Turkey. And we've done all those things, and it's called regime change. We've heard this thing, regime change, over and over again. Another card that's very important in this process is NGOs, non-governmental organization. NGOs play a strong role in all those things, is that they pretend to be helping the civilians or things like that, but actually they are there to destroy the country in which they're working. This is why you've seen 3 countries, very important countries, India, China, and Russia, all of which have very strong security apparatus, who 5 years ago decided to expel all Western NGOs. And it was not because they don't like freedom or so. It's because they knew from their security apparatus that those people were working in destabilizing their country. And we've seen the British Secret Service agitating in Hong Kong. So even though I hate the CCP, we also have to see that we have not very clean hands in this story. So what is very fascinating is that all those tactics are now being applied here at home. So the big question mark becomes, who is doing it? Who are the NGOs? And then we've seen Black Lives Matter pretending to be a benevolent defender of black people, while they actually totally not doing anything about all the black men that are being killed by other black men. They don't do anything about black cops being killed. They're just looking for opportunities to create tension, riots, and then we are seeing it right now, defunding of police, installation of very liberal DA and attorney general at the state level. And then, of course, we had the same thing with the Obama administration doing the same thing in the DOJ. So it's like if the chickens came home to roost, and to roost against us as citizens of the country to help the national government against the rest of us. And it is an effort. When you see Mitt Romney going and demonstrating with BLM, or Jim Moylan now pushing in an agenda against hate crime, which is one of the most destructive legislation a state can impose, because it basically puts a gag on free speech. And this is what they want to do. So they are slowly eroding every little piece of the Constitution. They are slowly eroding everything that keeps the society together, and they create instability.
They've even turned Jim Moylan into woke Jim.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I was going to go and sign his petition to run again. I am not going to do it. He's totally lost me on this one, and I think it's naivete in many ways. I don't understand, but basically, so now really people need to pay attention to why have we imported in the country the very dangerous policies that we were putting in the Middle East and around the Black Sea, which basically is meant to create chaos and civil war. So who are the actors behind this? And we can see there is a lot of people involved. There is a lot of NGOs involved. A lot of them are financed by the nefarious Soros, who nobody knows where he is, but he's still pulling strings and things like this. And we have a lot of small groups that are being used, under the guise of fighting global warming or fighting racial hatred and fighting all those things.
White coats for black lives?
Yeah, with their president here being the daughter of the governor. You see, it's very disturbing, and really we are coming at a time where we are facing a lot of danger to the Constitution, to the Republic, and it's very bad. So I think if people start understanding what is happening, those methods have been used in other countries, but who is bringing those methods here to the United States to fight our duly elected government? Every 4 years or every 2 years, if you don't like the policies of the government, there is a way you go to the ballot box and you put the people out of office. But those people don't want that. They want to control everything. And that's very, very, very worrisome.
You mentioned the term regime change. That's what it appears that they are looking for.
That's exactly what they're looking for, and they are using the same methods, using peaceful demonstration, creating chaos, and then from chaos, even creating new victims that will become new martyrs, and then from there have a situation of total insurrection. And this is very, very, regime change is a real thing, and we've been pushing it in many countries. The CIA and a lot of our intelligence community are very good at doing this. And they have done it in our name, while a lot of us had no idea they were doing it and probably don't agree with the methods and the goals. But they know better, they are the elites, they know better, and the media all have those relationships. A lot of the media people are married to politicians or people in the administration and everything, and it's all that elite in D.C. that decides who goes where and what, and they really don't like the Constitution. They don't like it, even though they swear an oath to it whenever they come in office. I don't know. I don't know what we have in the forefront. I hope that a lot of people, I think the American people in general are much smarter than what the national government think they are, and a lot more intuitive about what's going on. So like the senator before, I hope people wake up and go through and see through all the divisions and those things. This is manufactured. It is not based on reality. And the inanity of all those theories, and you see all those young people being manipulated with all kind of, it's almost like science fiction. It's just amazing. It's a world upside down. But there is one reason they're doing it. It's because they want to change our form of government, and they want to be the ones in charge. They don't like when people elect a disturber like Trump, but that's exactly the reason people elected Trump, because they wanted somebody to uphand the table and say, okay, enough is enough with all your shenanigans, We want to take control again. So.
Good points all, Frenchie. I'm really glad you called.
Yeah. I think the next 4 months are going to be very, very bad, unfortunately. Hopefully, it will have a good outcome.
We got to keep working at it.
Yeah. And we do our small contribution here on Tall Tales.
That's for sure. Thanks again, Frenchie.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, so we're coming down the home stretch, and I'm going to go to Churchill Downs, and there's one horse in the paddock that I'm going to ride out of the starting gate once that bell rings. The horse's name is Jack.
GRMC's cardiology department treats most complex heart problems. In our catheterization lab, Cardiologists use imaging equipment to treat clogged arteries that can cause heart attacks or heart failure. We perform balloon angioplasty, stenting, and other life-saving cardiac procedures. If you suffer from a heart condition, have your provider refer you to GRMC's Cardiology Clinic at 645-5500. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Cocoa Coffee Company mugs are now here. Show pride for your island as you enjoy your delicious Circle K coffee. Each generously sized 16-ounce mug is etched with Guam-inspired images like Chief Gadao, Serena, Two Lovers, and many more. The Cocoa Coffee Company mug collection is available for a limited time only, so don't miss out. Get yours today and collect them all. Exclusively available at Circle K locations. A portion of the proceeds go toward the Cocoa Bird Recovery Program.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. I walk into the paddock. I select a worthy steed. I have the stable boy bring him out to the starting gate. I mount the sturdy steed's back. Very good, sturdy steed. And as I sit in the starting gate, waiting for that bell to ring. Not that bell. That's the bell for the card, Real Joe Cruz. Anyhow, the starting gate opens and I take off down the track at Churchill Downs, riding a faithful, worthy steed named Jack. Hello, Jack.
Hi, good afternoon. There, Bob, how you doing? There it is. I placed in the Purina Derby.
There you go.
Anyways, yes, I'm calling you from the drive-thru. but I'm not at the intercom yet. But I'm calling, I just want to just pass on some information when it comes, from my understanding, about race relations and racism and stuff. There's three names that I keep in my pocket. One of them is Mildred Jefferson. Mildred Jefferson was the first African American or Black American female to graduate and get a surgeon degree from Boston University. She was also a founder of the Right to Life movement, and you can find her speeches and stuff and that on YouTube, and where she says the biggest confrontation, the biggest problems that the African American community would have to face is the problems of abortion, because most of the abortions are done on a black society, an American black society. And so you could watch those or catch those on YouTube or read articles about her. The second name is Toya Graham. I don't know if you remember Toya Graham, but back in 2015, there was a riot, the Freddie Gray riots out there in Baltimore, one of our favorite cities, city I love, city from The Wire, the show The Wire. And Miss Graham is the one that was videotaped going down to the riots and grabbing her son, who had a brick in his hand, and pulling him and scolding him and, berating him on video. And, they called her Mom of the Year and stuff like that. And the third person that I like you to keep in mind is a guy by the name of Reginald Denny. Now, most people don't know Reginald Denny, but Reginald Denny was the truck driver that was pulled out during the LA riots, caught on video and helicopter, and the gruesome things that were done to him. Now, with these three events or these three people in mind, it'll give you the concept of what racism is. But we could always rely on the historical context. We could also rely on the historical interpretation that the Marxist educational system puts forth. But you need to rely on information that can be, like you said, trusted and verified. And these three events, they really invigorate what's happening today in today's society. And as you may remember, in the Freddie Gray trial, it was 3 black officers, 3 white officers that were involved. And, their sentences was just as less as what happened to those 4 L.A. Men that assaulted Denny. And so, it's all about jurisdiction. It's all about, what community this stuff is happening in. And the majority of the communities that you see, and I can't emphasize this enough, Minnesota, when you look at the political landscape, most of the counties are conservative. It's just these 3 or 4 counties where a large part of the population lives that is Democrat. And, as far as I know, and I look at these media showing, like just recently, just the other day, MSNBC, there was a reporter in front of a burning building saying that this is just a protest, while there's a 5-alarm fire going right behind it. And, it's how the media portrays things. It's, we have to be careful. The media doesn't portray things how it is for regular people. And, I think these things happen. It ebbs and flows. And, we just have to keep things in perspective. But here in Guam, I'm really concerned because the downfall of our economy, this is a self-inflicted wound. And I agree with you when I heard you said that there's no way we're going to rebound from this for many, many years, if at all. And it's just a downright shame, Bob, because we're not in a recession. We're in an inflation because my money is not buying the same kind of stuff that, we used to buy in 2018, 2017. I mean, you had that port increase followed by the GRT increase. And, I'm getting less quality goods. I'm not getting, the same quantity. I'm spending more on stuff that is just biting into, my savings. And for the life of me, it's a breaking point right now. And I just don't know what the government is thinking. They're just concentrating on a sector of employees that rely on a tax base, on us. And we can't generate anything out there. And it's just a shame. And I don't think Carl Gutierrez can solve this stuff. I mean, this is way beyond. If you're relying on Carl Gutierrez to bring back that sunshine, listen, he had no effect on the sunshine. Guam has no effect on the sun and the sea except the pollution that we throw in our waters. So let's get something straight. People come here for the sun and for the surf. And it's not for your cultural diversity. It's not for they come here for the sun and the surf. And if you begin to mess that up, then, hey, we're at a lost cause. But as long as you can't fudge with that, you can't fudge with the sun, you can't fudge with the surf, we'll have our tourists come. They might be a different quality, they might be a different quantity, but they will come back. Not like you said, not in the same force. The whole tourism thing is going to have to be stood in its head, and there's going to be a lot of hotels that are going to close down. I think this is a good thing for Airbnbs. I mean, I'm a small independent, I'm a worker, I'm a gig worker. I also do have side jobs. I have side investments and stuff like that. But, I think it's a good time for us gig workers. But it's not a great...
Gotta go, Jack. Good call. Hate to end it, but we gotta go.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM, and 104.3 HD3.